Welcome to another episode of Remote Teaching Diaries, presented by Quizlet. My name is Darius White, also known as the other English teacher. If you're here to teach one, I'm here to reach one. This is a space where teachers teach teachers, where teachers tell their stories, and where teachers take care of teachers. I have a special guest that I've known for 6 years. I know her as Miss P, but I'll allow her to introduce herself. Take it away.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Miss P, Leiana Payawal. I've been a teacher in San Francisco Bay Area for 16 years now. I teach at Sacred Heart Cathedral Prep currently. I'm the department chair of the language department, and I teach Deaf Studies and American Sign Language. Thank you for having me today.
Word. As you'll learn today, she's a multifaceted teacher. She can do everything in the classroom. We're going to start with 2020. What are 3 words to describe your 2020? We're about halfway through, or more than halfway through. What are 3 words to describe your 2020?
Ebb and flow. Ebb and flow. 3 words. Ebb and flow. Those are my 3 words, White.
Word.
It captures the true essence, because so much can be, included in those 3 words.
Well, let's hear about it. So, what have been some successes, challenges, or just general observations in the classroom as far as 2020 goes?
You mean out of the classroom?
Yes, because we are online. Talk about it.
Okay, so observations, challenges, successes in the Zoom room, which I call it. Let's start with challenges. Challenges because I teach freshmen. I would have to say that the challenges in regards to that fall in that the socialization piece can be really challenging for freshmen. I mean, come on. These are kids who are they're transitioning from their middle school into some of these really larger high school environments. And, they came to the open house, they came to check out the school, and then all of a sudden you're like, welcome to the Zoom room here at SHCP. And the whole concept of navigating your classes, navigating how to make friends, navigating how to balance your workload and advocate for yourself, communicate with your teachers. The whole aspect of being a freshman online can be just so challenging. More so, I think, than being a sophomore, junior, or senior, from what I've observed. In regards to just the sophomores, juniors, and seniors, a lot of it, again, is just balancing their workload online, not having the socialization with their peers or teachers, but they do have the skill set and toolbox to navigate their way through high school. So that's a very fortunate thing for them.
So what have you been doing to help them in this online era, especially, again, they're transitioning between middle and high school? So what have been some things you've done to kind of set the environment to make it welcoming for them? As I was telling you earlier before we hit record,
for me as a teacher, there's no difference. I love teaching so much. So for me, there really isn't any change in how I'm teaching. So I could really be teaching in the middle of a crowded square in a city, and I would still be doing the same exact thing. So I think that energy that I bring to the classroom, wherever the classroom may be, I think that really contributes, and it allows the students to feel that, oh, okay, so my teacher is really weird. She clearly doesn't care how she's just being herself. I feel too like I can let my guard down on a screen, on this little rectangle. And I love that students can feel that they come in, everybody's sitting on class. Some of them look like this.
The dreadful ceiling.
Some of them look like this. And again, like, all of us are coming from different home environments, different settings. It runs the works, right? And so you really want to be conscientious of all of those things, but at the same time, allow students to feel safe and comfortable, confident in your classroom, whether that's on a Zoom screen or in an actual classroom. So for me, like, the first day of school, we jumped into scavenger hunts around the house and got dressed up in wacky outfits, learned some basic signs, introduced ourselves, and I told all of them that you are all very weird and I'm super duper weird too. We're gonna be weird together. And I think that from that day on, they were just like, wow, okay, our teacher called us weird, she's weird, cool, we could be chill to, like, we're chilling now, okay? Like, we've set the tone. And respect is the number one rule. And I always remember Abram Jackson saying that way back in the day, and it's always been something that I've repeated in every single one of my classes. So yeah, it's just, you know what it really comes down to is, again, it's just being comfortable and confident, I think, with yourself as a teacher, and then that energy allows itself to be dissipated almost like amongst your students. It spreads, it becomes contagious.
Sure. What have been some highlights, or some funny moments in the Zoom room?
Oh man, you know what? Sign language is such a fun class. Let me just start with saying that I've taught every grade from 3rd grade through 12th grade in these 16 years, and each one has its very own adventure and special place in my heart. But I love teaching high school so much. And before teaching American Sign Language and Deaf Studies, I was teaching high school English and physics. And teaching sign language is just an entirely different realm. It's special, and I love it so much. There's so much to it. I think I love how expressive it is. I think I love how watching students, you can take anything. You can take physics, English, math, whatever it is. You can take any topic and you can bring it into sign language and express it on your hands and your face and your body. And I love that. I get all these kids in class who are really self-conscious, or they're not sure about how to move their body or even how to express themselves verbally, let alone on their hands. And after just a few weeks of school and these kids making their very first ASL music videos, it's remarkable to see the confidence that is gained, or the energy that these kids have to express themselves. It's really beautiful. I'd say it's one of the most rewarding things as a teacher in COVID times, even outside of COVID times, but really in COVID times, to see kids light up and feel that tremendous sense of confidence and expression, inspiration in themselves.
Word. It's kind of a weird question I'm going to ask you.
Yeah, go ahead.
What do you think you would have done if you were a student and you were going through this? How do you think your perspective or your whole attitude would be if you had to be a student during this Zoom era?
That's a great question. All right, students out there, everyone seems to, peg Miss P as Miss P, happy Miss P. She's just always smiling. She's so excited and friendly and cheery. Truth be told, students, I think I'd be having some macro meltdowns in my house if I were a teenage student. Truth be told, even as an adult, sometimes being totally real, as a teacher, there have been some macro meltdowns inside of the house. And it's true, because you know what? As much of an extrovert as I am, and I have learned though during COVID that I do really appreciate the space and quiet. And that's something that I've also learned that I need to practice a little bit more, is patience, which is so funny to me, because I felt like in the classroom I have all the patience in the world, right? You have all the patience in the world as a teacher, but when it comes to yourself and your own life, it's a whole nother practice. So learning how to practice patience and breathing, who would have thought that you actually have to learn how to how to breathe correctly. There's a way to breathe correctly. So I tell my students these things. It's okay if you feel like you can't breathe sometimes, like at home or when you're walking because of X, Y, and Z. Maybe it's anxiety. Maybe it's because we haven't moved our bodies in like 6 months in the ways that we have been with our sports or our activities. All of those things. But yes, I truly believe, D. White, that if I were a teenager, I would probably be having like theatrical performances, talking to my make-believe friends at my home. I don't know, that sounds crazy, but I'm sure you gotta be creative is what I'm saying in these times.
Looking forward, what do you think one of the first things you'll do when we come back under hopefully normal circumstances, vaccines been administered? What do you imagine that first day like, coming back on campus and it's a regular day and everyone's there?
Because we've lacked the physical contact with one another, I love hugs, and the student, like, hugs, high fives, just that energy brought into the class, like, good morning, students. Like, we hug it out, we high five, whatever it is, just being able to have some sort of like physical contact. I was just thinking also that, like my class, we would come in, we'd probably circle up, we would do some sort of dance or like throw on some music, throw up the signs, gather together to just really build that classroom energy together and then set the norms for the school year. I also told my students recently that I tremendously miss balling out on the basketball court, teacher versus student. We have teacher versus student, what are they called? Intramurals.
Yeah.
It's pretty competitive for like a good, I don't know, however many weeks that we play basketball, and it's on the top 5 things that I miss. It's just balling out on the court with students, having some competitive b-ball time. Yeah, I miss that. I look forward to the day that I get to do that again.
And the ankles are doing okay? No,
like the ankles, the back. Getting so old. But hey, not gonna stop me from playing some basketball with the kids. Man, getting packed by like 6-foot-something juniors or seniors.
No, the fact that you said packed, I think like we're gonna put it like a subtitle. That means to get your shot blocked out there if you don't remember that back in the day.
So what just happened? You packed Miss P? Come on.
Again, for the people that were born after 2000s, again, that's a block shot, boom shakalaka. Well, going back, right, to kind of get into a little bit of your own academic, personal, and professional journey through teaching, what do you think inspired you to go into teaching X amount of years ago?
It's a great question. And, it's funny because a lot of my students, it makes me laugh when they ask me, Miss P, did you always want to be a teacher?
They always ask.
They always ask that. And, what am I going to do? I don't like fibbing or lying or even like sugarcoating anything. So I look at them and I go, no, I did not actually. And then they go, what? Really? This wasn't like your number one dream job? And I thought, let me tell you the journey of Miss P. I actually love science and medicine. And once upon a time ago, I thought that I would be, practicing medicine in the hospital or wherever and just doing my thing. And I came to realize, I told the kids, I hate hospitals. I just highly dislike them. I can't do it. I can't stand the lighting. I can't stay up 24 hours. Like, I just cannot. I love every aspect of the science field in that regard, but it's just not something that I knew that it wasn't for me. And so I was walking on the college campus one day and there it was, this brick building that said education on it. And I thought to myself, that's interesting. Maybe I should go check that out. And that seems like a profession or a field that allows and leaves for a lot of room for growth and opportunity, a lot of space to do a lot of things. And I love having options and not feeling just stuck in one field or in one sense. And so, I just kind of fell into teaching, and I found deaf studies and interpreting as another area of study in college, because I had deaf friends growing up. I really was just so captivated by the culture and the language, and it was a really cool way for me to just extend my love for learning languages. And so I studied elementary and special education, deaf studies and interpreting. I got my master's at USF in educational organization and leadership, so higher ed and administration policy, if you will. And it's great. I love it. And then from there, I just kind of ended up stumbling upon all of these jobs. So a lot of people also ask me, like, oh, how did you teach 3rd through 12th grade? How did you get into that? And my answer to everyone is, I have just it's just always something that I've fallen into. It's not anything that I walked up and said, "Good morning, my name is Leiana Payawal and I am ready to be a 3rd grade teacher. I am now ready to teach physics." It never happened like that. It was just almost like I stumbled upon them. They just kind of fell onto my path. And before I knew it, here I am, teaching high school. And when I think back on it, on the adventure, it's pretty amazing. I feel very blessed, very fortunate to have been given these multiple opportunities to teach such a wide span of subject areas and areas of very specific study, like English, physics, American Sign Language, and deaf studies. All of those things are really unique areas, and I love the fact that I was able to come across them. I was offered these positions, and then basically allowed the freedom to build curriculum, to build programs in a way that I saw authentic and fit for the students' needs and what worked best for them. And I thought, wow, this is kind of cool. Most of the time teachers apply for these jobs, and then they're told, here is what you need to do. This is the curriculum. We want this, this, and this. And I've never really experienced that. I've always experienced being able to enter a role, observe, analyze, feel it out, and then be able to think to myself, what can we do to make this program even better? And what am I going to get to do to revamp, refine, renovate this program? And over the 16 years, I would have to say that is something that I greatly, greatly appreciate, and I have such a love for, is curriculum design. I love designing. I love being able to sit there and help other people design their curriculum, or even a lesson plan, if you will. And I think that's such a special skill set that I have developed over these many years, and I wouldn't have been able to do that if I went into teaching with the idea that I'm going to be only a kindergarten teacher and that is my role and I'm only sticking to it, and for years to come. Not to say that there's anything wrong with that, because there is not. I have plenty of friends who are kindergarten teachers or 4th grade teachers for life, and I love them. But I am very happy with where my educational adventure has taken me.
Word. You talked earlier about, respect being a part of your class. What are some other values that you bring to class and or want to instill in your young people?
That's a really, really great question, White. Aside from respect, I tell the kids it starts with respect. Why? Because you start with respecting yourself. What's that look like? What's that feel like? How does that play out in your everyday life? When you can do that, you start to see, how does that respect look like with other people? And then from respect, we can talk about empathy, gratitude, authenticity, all of those things that I really emphasize, in not even in myself, but just amongst my students, because I think it's so important for these young, developing minds to really understand and embrace, what does it mean to be your authentic self? That is a loaded question. But I don't think that I don't think it's a question that can't be answered, and I definitely have seen it with my students from freshmen. And again, like, I teach freshmen and I teach juniors and seniors, and my freshmen come back to me as juniors, so I get to almost loop with them, but miss a year in between. It is so cool to see how these teenagers are developing over the 4-year span of being able to teach them in high school, and to see that, if anything that they learn from an ASL class or a physics class or whatever is not the content matter, but it's that they can walk away feeling confident and proud of who they are, or who they are, working towards becoming. And I really appreciate that. There's a deep sense of appreciation.
Word. We're going to have hopefully a different variety of viewership, but we're mostly talking to teachers out there. If you were to give advice or talk to your younger teacher self, Miss P, what is something you would tell your younger self?
In regards to teaching, I mean, there's so many different realms of this, right? Like, for me, when I think about this, I think, okay, well, there's the realm, there's the area, the space for learning to navigate the classroom, learning about your classroom. Actually, I take that back. It's not your classroom, young teachers. It is our classroom. And by our, I never use the word my classroom. I just refuse to say, this is my classroom, this is Miss P's class. I always emphasize, this is our classroom. And my students know very well what that means, and they should, because it is not my classroom. It should be a collective, collaborative environment that includes all of those students, including the teacher, right? And so I would tell my young teacher self, or young teachers to come, is, get to know yourself a little bit before you jump right into that classroom. Really, like, sit with who you are, reflect on your narrative, your journey thus far, and then see how that applies itself or plays itself out into a classroom environment, and what that looks like with other people involved. And if there are any doubts or questions, that's okay, but sit and process, work through those things, because I guarantee you, if you're not feeling pretty confident and good with yourself, and then you throw yourself into a teaching environment with 28 other people, little kids, big kids, whatever it is, it will overwhelm the heck out of you. And that is not a fun feeling. And that is what happens. I truly believe, I think about what happens when we get these new teachers thrown into these classrooms, and they go through these teaching programs, and of course they're taught all of these different things. And then it's okay, here's my checklist, classroom management, okay, all right, okay, procedures, rules, consequences. Okay. But it's you can have all of that in the bag, but if you are not confident and you don't feel good, you're not stoked about who you are and outside of that role of teaching, and then going into that role of teaching, it's not going to come together. There will be a disconnect. And that is what a lot of people feel when they go into teaching. They question, what am I doing wrong? What happened? And really, it's not that they're doing something necessarily wrong. It really starts with the self. I truly believe that. And then it just kind of goes like this. So that's a piece of advice that I would share with my young Miss P self.
So, again, this is Remote Teaching Diaries, and so this is kind of like a time capsule. What would you tell your future self, or what do you want to say now for your future self to kind of chew on?
I would say that it's so important to be able to sit and process, really just be able to allow yourself that time, that space, navigating those spaces, to process information, to process whatever it is that is happening in life, whether it's your life, your student's life, the world around you. I think it's so telling that we live in this world that's just like constantly go, 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 go. Mm-hmm. You know, we're so digitally distracted, socially distracted. It's really important to just take that space and that time to sit and process. Allow yourself that time to really dive deep into those thoughts, those opinions, those feelings, whatever it may be, and not be, this is what I would tell myself, not be so gosh darn hard on myself. Don't be so hard on yourself, P, is what I would probably tell myself. Don't be so hard on yourself. It's okay if things don't work out the way that you had, thought that they would, and just to continue to be mindful. Now, I would say to appropriate those spaces, or to create those spaces of thought, of feeling, of being, and then allow yourself to simply be.
Snaps, all that. We're going into our closing segment. And thank you. This is Leiana Payawal. She's a super interdisciplinary, super dope. She's a super athlete, surfer, b-ball player. In an alternative universe, right? Let's say you were not a teacher. Right? What would you be?
If I were not a teacher, that's a grand question. That's a hard question, because people ask me that, and so much of my identity, and this is something truly that I am working on, people, and I'm sure a lot of other teachers can empathize, is that your identity of who you are almost sometimes gets just with teaching. And that is something currently that I'm trying to figure out in these 16 years of instruction and probably onward, is that how can I make sure that I am not just Miss P, the teacher, that teacher lady, like whatever tagline that students have tagged for me, and make sure that I have my own sense of self outside of teaching. And that's why I go back to what I said to younger teachers or new teachers, is making sure that, you're continuously working on who you are as a person. It doesn't just stop there. It's ongoing, because even in these 16 years, I'm still thinking to myself, oh man, like that's what I am, Miss P the teacher. And so I don't really know. I'm not quite sure what I would be. I would probably be a bajillion things if I were not teaching. Can I tell you specifically what they are? No. But, I've got a lot of different things going on. So I'm sure they would all be I'm sure if I were to leave teaching and go into another job, I would still take the energy, the passion, the love, the enthusiasm, the jubilance, and I would take that into any profession that I ended up entering if I ever left teaching. I did want to end, I don't know how you end this series, but I would really love to end this series with a read aloud.
Oh.
That's okay. And a read aloud that is snaps, is just like a shout out. It's just a reminder to all teachers and students, because I think that this basically captures the essence of just everything that we're talking about, like where we are in COVID, where we are in these various spaces. And yes, so if that's okay, I don't know how this all ends.
That is, yes. I'm all for it.
All right, for all of you teachers out there, students, families, individuals experiencing the ebb and flow of quarantine times, this one is for you. It's a poem by E.H. It goes something like this. Their words spun like a cyclone, howling through the dark of night, promising acceptance if you gave up all your light. But block your ears, my darling, you are not a brittle stone. This storm cannot erode you, for you're more than blood and bone. You're deeper than the ocean, both unstoppable and free, and nothing can control the wild intentions of the sea. So when they try to shape you, slip like water from their palms, for wind should know it's reckless to disturb the ocean's calm. You have the right to be here, every right to what you feel. And the wind can howl forever, but the ocean will not kneel. So do not let them change you. Send your waves out far and wide, and let them learn the hard way that you can't command the tide. Sending much love to all of you out there during these really radical times. My love goes out to you. My heart goes out to you. And keep doing you. That's what I would say. Keep doing you, everyone. Students, teachers out there, do you. And embrace this, because even in times, I truly believe this, even in times of like suffering and times of challenge and hardship, no matter what circumstance it is, I definitely believe it's in those moments that we struggle that we end up coming out stronger. We end up coming up learning so much more, not just about ourselves, but others. And then we can truly appreciate the narratives around us.
Mic drop. Well, folks, thank you all for tuning in. Again, my special guest was Leiana Payawal. You can find her in San Francisco. She is an ASL teacher, as well as among many different things. Again, this is known as the Remote Teaching Diaries by Quizlet. This is where teachers take care of teachers. Teachers tell their stories. And yeah, that's our show today. Thank you. Peace.